Hey, Lee, I found it.
On the socket?
I used it to put the bottom one back in.
You got the right shit.
See, I told you.
Where's the right spot for that?
Right here for now.
You're right.
BigRobsVan is cruising down the old dirt road with the engine roaring loud. It's where the stories grow. Tales of midnight races and the places we would go. BigRobsVan, yeah, rolling like it should.
Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Rob. This monstrosity behind me is BigRobsVan. That sound you hear is the neighbor's generator, and if I look tired, that's because I am. My wife and I just returned from putting 2,200 miles on BigRobsVan. We drove from Oklahoma to West Virginia. We stayed there for several days and then we drove back home. So we got to see some cool things while we were on the road. We made a few stops along the way. I got to stay in a tiny house. I got to attend a retro computer convention. You're going to get to see all those things in this video. And I had my first major mechanical breakdown while we were on the road. Fortunately, I was in a parking lot. Unfortunately, it was 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And then fortunately, again, there were a couple of gentlemen there that just happened to know how to fix vans. So you're gonna get to see all that unfold in this video. So let's get started with hitting the road from Oklahoma City, heading to West Virginia. Once you leave Oklahoma City, the terrain changes pretty quickly. As you pull out of town, the buildings give way to trees, and eventually the trees give way to flat plains. Now, my wife loves to drive and I love to film things, so we kind of have an agreement. She does most of the driving and I do most of the filming. Now, roughly 100 miles into the trip, we heard this rattling sound coming from the roof, and if you recall, I had added a solar panel the day before using tape. And so I was so afraid that the panel was flapping around up there and was about to fall off. So we pulled over at the nearest Love's. I climbed up on top of the roof as high up as I could get, and the tape was coming loose because I had also washed the roof of the van and there was water which was preventing the tape from sticking down. So we dried the roof off, reapplied the tape, and it held the solar panel for the entire rest of the trip. No further problems after that. A few more miles down the road was the town of Miami, Oklahoma. Now, it is spelled like Miami in Florida, but it is pronounced Miami. It is named after the Native American Miami tribe. It's kind of an interesting little place, and I love little cities like this, especially ones that are right off of Route 66, because there are always neat little things to see. There was a really cool movie theater that we saw on Main Street. We saw lots of neat buildings, and then we found this nice little place to eat called Wayland's Cuckoo Hamburgers. You name a place, Wayland's Cuckoo Hamburgers, I'm gonna eat there. I don't know if you can see the prices on this menu board, but a giant hamburger will set you back $5.45. And if you want cheese, it's gonna be an extra 30 cents. So this is where we got our lunch from. I got the onion rings, and these were the good kind of onion rings, the type that are real hard to bite through. It's hard to get through those onions, so the easiest thing to do sometimes is just cram the entire thing in your mouth. But it was a really good lunch that we had there in Miami, and that really set the trip off on the right foot. According to the inside attendant, this is what happens when you don't turn off the engine of your motorcycle and fill it up with gas. A few hours later, we came across our first Buc-ee's. Now, if you're not familiar with Buc-ee's, it is a gas station, but it's way more than a gas station. They are mostly found in the South. Now there are some on the East Coast, and of course in the Southeast. We ran across this one in Missouri. Buc-ee's is not a secret. As you could tell, there were hundreds and hundreds of people inside Buc-ee's. They have great bathrooms, by the way, and they have probably 50 or 60 stalls. It's quite impressive as far as bathrooms go. Buc-ee's is also known for their fresh food. They make barbecue sandwiches. They have breakfast sandwiches. They make their own beef jerky, and everything in the store, all of these things are Buc-ee's branded. So it's kind of an interesting place. In fact, out in the lobby, I found Buc-ee's umbrellas and Buc-ee's camping chairs, even a tiny little camping chair for little guys. Buc-ee the Beaver is on everything. This is a great place to get out and stretch your legs. We don't have these in Oklahoma, so every time we come across a Buc-ee's, we definitely go in and check everything out. Before long, it was time to get back on the road. One of the things about being the passenger in the van is that you end up shooting a lot of footage, which seems really important when you're shooting it, and then when you're editing, it seems like you made a little bit too much. I got lots of footage of cities and trees and bridges and all those sorts of things. You know, there's an old joke about sports cars being able to pass anything but a gas station, and my van is the worst of both worlds because it doesn't pass other cars and it also doesn't pass gas stations. So a lot of our time on this trip was spent putting gas into the van. I think my van gets about 12 miles to the gallon. It's not great on mileage, so we definitely put a lot of money in gas stations, but that's always a good excuse to go inside and walk around and see what they have. This particular gas station had all kinds of little collectibles and trinkets, and I even caught my wife over by the lottery machine. What are you doing over there? Get away from that. It didn't take long before we were in St. Louis, and there's two things I always look forward to when driving through St. Louis. One is seeing the arch. Whenever I see the arch, it lets me know exactly where I am, wherever our road trip may be taking us. But the other thing I love seeing is White Castle. Believe it or not, the closest White Castle to Oklahoma City is St. Louis, about a 7-hour drive away. So anytime we see a White Castle, we stop and get something to eat. This White Castle was a nice little break. We got some food here across the street. There was this Long John Silver's with an all-you-can-eat buffet. I can't imagine anybody would think that was a good idea, especially on a road trip. And once we got our White Castles, we hit the road again, and just on the other side of St. Louis, we found a place to stop. That's where we stayed for the night. We woke up right next to what I like to call Hotel Cracker Barrel, had some morning breakfast, got some more gas in the van, and hit the road once again. Now, there's a lot more driving that happened here, but eventually you could see the terrain start to change as we got near West Virginia. What beautiful trees, what a great route this was on the way to the tiny house that I was going to be spending the next 4 nights at. What a great little place, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that. But man, this drive on the way out here was absolutely stunning, just absolutely beautiful. Now on the side of this road, my wife spotted this little pull-over area where there's a small boat ramp. I guess this is used for people to get their canoes or kayaks in and out of this river. And we stopped just to take a look at the view for a minute because it was really, really cool. I wanted to slide down this thing, but my wife said no. So the first part of our road trip ended when we arrived at my friend's tiny house. My friend owns this tiny house. It's about an hour outside of Charleston, West Virginia, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place and a great little area. You've got this view of the river. You can see all the way down in there. You can walk down. He owns the property right down there to the river, so you can walk down to the river. Of course, you can see the trees, and you can see the clouds up there in the top of the trees. It's just a great place. I'm not going to show you too much of the inside of the tiny house, but I'll show you a little bit here of the outside, and of course there's the porch. And I will show you one area of the tiny house. One of my favorite things is that up against one of the walls they have added triple bunk beds, and I was joking all weekend, the only time I've ever seen triple bunk beds is in old Three Stooges movies, so I thought this was really fun. So anyway, my wife and I, we each got our own bunk, and we just had a wonderful, relaxing time staying out here at this tiny house. Now, as it turns out, my wife had a conflict back home, and so we had to get her to the airport so she could fly back home and I got to spend 4 nights by myself in this tiny house. Again, it was so relaxing, it was so cool, and one added bonus is that my friend's dad lives right next door, and so multiple occasions we got to sit outside on the porch and share a drink or just sit there and talk and look at the river, and it was just a really great experience. It was really good. Well, except when it rained, but that didn't happen too often. After leaving the tiny house, I drove to the small town of Hurricane, West Virginia to attend the International Retro Computer Expo. This is a gathering of about 40 to 50 people who get together every year to share their love of old computers. When I say old computers, we're talking about old 8-bit computers from the 1980s, Commodore 64s, Apple IIs, the ZX Spectrum. There was even a couple of Amigas there and some other random computers. This is a really eclectic group of people who all still carry a torch for these old computers, myself included. And so all of us bring different computers to share. We bring different programs and games to show each other. We do talks. It's a really, really fun weekend. This is the 4th year in a row that I've gone to this convention. The first year I drove my car. The second year my friend and I rented an RV and drove an RV all the way up there. And then the last 2 years we've driven BigRobsVan all the way from Oklahoma to Hurricane, West Virginia, which is just over 1,000 miles. It's a really, really fun weekend, and as you can see, everybody was just having a really, really good time at the convention. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a multi-day convention. I was there Thursday, I was there all day Friday, I was there all day Saturday, and part of Sunday. There's got to be something in between introvert and extrovert. I don't know what that is, but I am, for the most part, an extrovert. People, which is good. People come up to me during this convention. I do some retro podcasts. I put out a lot of retro content on other channels, and people that listen to that content, they want to come talk to me. They want to tell me their stories. They want to listen to my stories. They want to talk about computers. I love it. I love all that stuff. I love interacting with people, but there's only so much of it that I can do. I could do it for 2-3 hours, something like that, and then I just have to take a break. I just have to stop. You know, sometimes it's just for 5 or 10 minutes, but I just have to go find a quiet place, go sit down, kind of decompress, unwind maybe, get back to zero, whatever zero is, whatever that feels like, and then I could go do it again. I could go right back out and talk to more people. But in this type of situation, you are always on. There is no, it's not like I'm on some stage and people are far away. It's like you're talking with people all the time, you know. And so on Saturday, I just kind of had my fill. I needed to reset. And so about 10 a.m. I stepped outside of this convention, this building where this is taking place, and walked over to my van. And my intention was to start the van, turn on the air conditioning, and sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, cool down, reset, go back inside. So I came out to the van, I started the van, and when I turned on the air conditioning, nothing happened. There was no blower. The heat would not come on, cold air would not come on, the vent would not come on, the blower would not work. It was like the entire control panel was just completely dead. And so I didn't know what to do. I went to YouTube and was searching for, air conditioning controls, because it felt like the controls were dead. I said air conditioning controls, not working, Ford Econoline E250 2007, and there's a video from someone who has a 2007 E350, and he talks about how to troubleshoot this problem. He says there is a fuse underneath the steering wheel, under the steering column, the fuse box inside the van that you can check, and then under the hood there's a larger fuse that you can check, and then there's a relay that turns on and off the blower motor, and then after that you're digging into the engine. Believe it or not, I had no fuses in this van. It's kind of a ridiculous thing because I have blown a fuse before in this van. So the first thing I did with no air conditioning, by the way, it was again 95 degrees, was got in the van and drove to the nearest Walmart. Went over to Walmart and went in, and I didn't check to see what size of fuse I needed, like not just the amperage, but physically what size I needed. So they had these combo packs of fuses, and one was what I would call old school fuses, like the fuses that have been in older cars, like the regular size, let's call it regular size, and then there's a smaller size. But I didn't know what it was, and so they had these combo packs of fuses. They're like $22. I bought one of the big size and one for the small one, so I'm already in $40-something for fuses. Fuses don't go bad. I don't think they go bad, but I can keep those in the van or keep them here, you know, at the house, whatever. So I wasn't too worried about the price. And by the way, the lady that checked me out in Walmart, the nicest old lady, probably early 70s, mid 70s. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And she said, I am doing wonderful today. How is your day? And I said, my day is terrible. I said, the air conditioning on my van has broken, and I'm going to have to tell my wife that tomorrow we're going to start a 1,000-mile trip back home in a van with no air conditioning. And I thought she was going to cry. She felt so bad for me and offered to pray for me. It's the nicest old lady. And I said, I'm good right now. I said, she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I hope the solution is in this bag of things that I just bought. And so I went out in the parking lot. I pulled over to around the side of Walmart. I pulled out the fuse underneath the steering column, which is easier said than done. It's pouring sweat. I did the review of the Odry battery-powered fan. I took the fan up under, put it in the floorboard, and had it pointing at my face because I was so hot. So not the intended use for the van or for the fan, but it did work. I pulled the fuse out. The fuse looked fine. I swapped in a good fuse, and that was not the problem. So then I opened up the hood and I looked underneath the hood, and those fuses were much larger than, physically larger than even the big ones I bought. They were big ones, you know, that you would find under the hood of a car. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to fix this, you know. And so I came back to the convention, and there were two guys at the convention. Now these guys, one of the guys, his name is Lee, and he was at the convention last year. They're not really from the same circles that I run in, but they are cut from the same cloth. These are guys that like old computers. I think they lean a little bit towards older computers than what a lot of the people at this show are into. We're talking like old MS-DOS computers, old green screen type of computers. I think that's probably their bag. But Lee drives a van very similar to this one, but it's not similar at all to this one, but it's similar model to this one. But I get back to the convention, and Lee is there with his friend Bobby, and they say, hey man, what's going on? And I kind of approached him, and I said, do you know anything about doing this? Do you have any fuses or whatever? And these guys said, let's go take a look. Now again, they're inside a building with air conditioning. Outside in the parking lot where it's 95 degrees is broken BigRobsVan. They come out, we pop the hood. Lee, I think it was, went in and got a voltmeter to do some testing. Bobby went to his truck and brought out this big toolbox with all kinds of, I mean, everything you could imagine that you would need to fix vehicles. Like, he's got sockets, he's got nuts and bolts and you know, I mean, I'm being like the screwdrivers and wrenches, but everything, right? So we open the hood, and you know, at first they say, well, what have you done? I said, well, I checked one fuse. That's kind of where I stopped, and they're like, okay. So they get their voltmeter, and I don't remember if they pulled the same fuse I did or not, but I said, this is what I did, and they checked that. And by the way, troubleshooting a vehicle is very similar to troubleshooting a computer. You know, you just kind of work down the line. If you're having a problem with a computer and it won't turn on, you start, you know, going from front to back. Like, does it have power? Is it plugged in? Is it this, you know? And they started doing the same type of troubleshooting, which I'm sure has come in handy with old computers, but they were doing it to the van. So they used the voltmeter to check the fuse that was underneath the hood. That checked out to be good. Then there's a relay in that same area, and they took that relay and swapped it with another relay, and we started the van and it still didn't work. So they said the problem's mechanical. And when I heard that, my heart sunk, because I thought multiple things. I thought, number one, this is not something you could fix in a parking lot. Number two, I don't know how to fix this. Number three, these guys are not going to fix my van for free in a hot parking lot. And then that's exactly what happened. They just kept going with the troubleshooting. They followed the lines from the fuse box over to essentially the blower motor. And so when we got to the blower motor, they were listening and they said, I don't think the blower motor is coming on. We're gonna have to pull it out and test that. And I'm like, pull it out. I can't even see where it is. And they go, well, we're gonna have to take your battery out. And so they removed the battery from the van, which, it's okay. And then they said, we still can't get to it. We have to remove the battery tray that the battery sits on. I've never removed a battery tray from a vehicle in my life. And so, again, these two guys are just working together. They remove the battery tray. Then there's hoses and vents that are in the way, and they disconnect that stuff. And then, every single thing is like, it's not like taking bolts. If you've looked under the hood of a van like this, this is a short nose van, everything is just crammed in there. It's like when you pack for a trip and it can hold X amount of clothes in your suitcase, and you put double that and then you sit on it and try to zip the suitcase closed. That's what this hood looks like. That's what the engine compartment looks like. It's just crammed in there. So it's not like you could just take a socket and take out a bolt. You have to use weird extensions, and those extensions that are hinged on the end. It's just a mess, And not only that, but it's so hot that at one point I felt like I was gonna pass out, and I'm not doing the work. I'm literally like the kid that's helping his dad hold a flashlight or go get a water or something. Like, I'm not doing anything. I feel terrible. And these guys just keep going, and they remove enough parts. They get the blower motor out. We put power to it, and it doesn't do anything. They're like, yeah, you got a dead blower motor. So again, I resolved myself to, great, when I get home, I'm gonna have to take this to the shop, get a new blower motor put in. And there's another guy there named Matt, and I borrowed some of Matt's footage of the convention. And Matt is one of those guys, he's a local, he lives there, and Matt has done so much for me. Matt is, I always joke, I say Matt is my personal chauffeur when I'm there at the show. When we go out to lunch or to dinner, I go get in Matt's car. I say, Matt, you're driving, I'm shotgun, And is one of the nicest guys. He's one of those guys that is kind of like more comfortable being a little bit in the background, but is always adding to things. He's always making things happen. And Matt had come out and he said, there's a Napa Auto Parts about 5 or 10 miles from here. You need a ride? And so we all said, yeah. So now Lee and Bobby, who have been working on my van, Matt, who's driving, and me in the passenger seat, drive to Napa. We walk in, and we've got this blower motor, and I'm like, I need one of these, and tell them, it's a 2007 Ford E250 van. And they go back and they come back in the box. They say, we've got one. It's $125. Which to me, if I could get out of this for $125, that sounds super, super cheap to me. And so we buy it and come back. These guys put it, in the engine bay, and then they put the battery tray where they put the hoses and vents back up. By the way, at some point, I didn't mention this, but the condenser coil, that was all cold, so we knew that part was working, But again, that was part of the problem of just troubleshooting, like all the way down the line. Put the blower motor in there. We put the battery tray in there, we put the battery in there, and fire it up. And this is the only part that I'm good for, is I'm inside the van, I start the ignition and I turn it on, and it works. I can't believe it, it works. It starts blowing cold air immediately, and these guys have fixed it. And so, believe it or not, we got everything back in there, and then there was one nut missing, and it's the nut that goes on the battery cable clamp. And Bobby went to his van and said, or his truck, and he said, here's one I think will work. And it was, it looked like maybe the thread, like it was slightly different thread, but it worked. We put it on, everything worked. And so, man, I owe those guys just like, I would have paid them $1 zillion if I had it. And unfortunately, I was only able to pay them a jug of Irish whiskey that I brought with me that I thought this is going to come in handy some point in the time during this trip, and it did. It came in handy right then. I would have given them a case of them if I had them. So, it just goes to show that the retro computer community is a lot like the van life community. It's like no man left behind, right? And these guys just literally tore into my van, troubleshot the problem, figured it out, put in the new part. And the funniest part of this for me was when we were, and by the way, this whole thing took like maybe 3 hours, because I had to do a performance at 2 o'clock. I had to go on a stage and talk to people. So we had to take a break, like at 1, like I said, I gotta go inside, I gotta wash my hands, and because just from moving parts, I didn't do any work. And then come back out, and then we'll finish it. So probably, this is a span of like 3 hours worth of work. And like I said, they just did it. And so, but anyway, what was funny is during the middle of this, like right before we went to the auto parts store, maybe I think we'd already been back, was the parking lot is now filled with parts of my van. My battery is here, there's stuff here, there's tools here, there's all these things. And that's when my wife pulled up. And she thought, later when I talked to her, she said, I thought we were gonna have to get either airline tickets to get home or rent a car to get home. She said, I did not think that van was gonna go back together and run once again, but it did. And we got it, like I said. So those guys saved my butt. That's really all I can say about that. So I guess that's pretty much it. On Sunday morning, we packed up the van and began the long drive home back to Oklahoma. The drive home always goes a little bit faster because it's not quite the adventure that the way to a place is. You drive past St. Louis and you go, well, there's the arch, there's whatever, and you just kind of sail on through. Now, one of the things that we did stop to see was the Fudge Factory in Uranus. Now, the place has a funny name, and we've stopped here before, but it's always fun to stop and taste the fudge from Uranus. And by the way, if you go to this place, every employee makes 10,000 variations of that same joke. One employee said they had lost their keys in Uranus. Another employee asked me if our purchase was to go or if we'd be eating in Uranus. The jokes get a little old after a while, but it's okay. It's a fun place to stop. Our last stop of the day was in Vinita, Oklahoma. Now, Vinita, Oklahoma is home to the world's largest McDonald's. They may not have that record anymore, but it is a giant McDonald's that spans over the interstate. We did not go there this time. Instead, we spent a few minutes driving around through the town, looking at the downtown area. Unfortunately, by the time we arrived, most of the buildings and businesses were closed. We did find a little restaurant to grab some dinner from and got to see some fun murals. And of course, this whole route on the way home is right down Route 66. So there's always murals and things to see, even one of those inflatable wiggly guys. So that's pretty much it. After 2,200 miles round trip, we rolled back into the driveway and knock on wood, everything went okay. So I want to talk about for just a minute what went right on the trip and what went wrong on the trip. The things that went right were, number one, obviously the van. The van worked, and everything that I've spent all the time doing, all the stuff that I've built, all the stuff that I set up inside the van, that all worked. The bed functioned. the desk, like all those things, like the physical integrity of the stuff that I put in the van, that stuff worked. So that was a success. Number two, the solar panel that I added to the roof before I left was, other than when I thought it was going to fly off, was also a success. You know, I doubled the amount of solar on the top of my van. So I went from a 200 watt panel to having two 200 watt panels, or 400 watts of solar. When I was driving, there were times where I was getting 350 or more watts coming in. And even when I was sitting in West Virginia, I was getting 250 to 300 watts while I was parked. So that basically every day got my house batteries back up to 100%. I have an all powers 2000 watt battery, and I could keep it at 100%. So at night I could, I ran my refrigerator the entire time I was gone. At night I use a CPAP, so I use a lot of the battery at night, plus recharging a laptop, recharging phones and tablets, all those different things, and it was able to keep up. It was totally able to keep up. I would say adding one solar panel, a 200 watt solar panel, was super useful, and I've enjoyed it, and it's worked pretty good. Adding that second one is a game changer. The second one, just having that much solar. And again, it depends. For me, I'm a guy that uses a lot of electricity. So if you're that person, it was a game changer. That totally helped everything for me. So that worked great. I mentioned the refrigerator. Earlier, right before I left, I did a review of the Set Powers refrigerator, or Set Power refrigerator. I think it was the PT45. It's a 45 liter refrigerator, and it worked great. It has a smaller container that you can, set a little bit cooler. You can set them at any temperature, but I had that one a little bit cooler, and then I had the larger one. That thing, it works great. It's so well insulated that once it gets to temperature, which takes less than an hour, it does a really good job of maintaining temperature. So as I mentioned in the review, it does not have a Bluetooth app, and that's something that I do almost obsessively, is check my refrigerator, check the temperature. But once I didn't have that app, it didn't seem to be, I just set the temperature and left it. So the refrigerator went fine. I think that's pretty much the big highlights of all the stuff that went well. So let's talk about for a minute what went wrong. So first of all, you can't foresee a mechanical failure like the one I experienced, but what you can do is be a little bit more prepared. The guys that worked on my van asked me if I had the owner's manual. I said I do, but it's at home. They asked me if I had one of those Chilton's manuals or Haynes manuals or something, and I said I don't. I didn't even have tools. I have a pair of needle nose pliers. I have one screwdriver, and maybe one regular pair of pliers, and that was it, and no fuses. So I was not prepared. I was not prepared, and not that I would have been able to do the repair by myself anyway, but I didn't have anything. So I think that's kind of a failure. That's one takeaway from the trip, is that you can be a little bit more prepared. Another problem that I had or experienced is that I didn't pack correctly. And so let me explain this. I'm going to give you an example. Several years ago, I lost the valve stem cover, the cap that goes on your valve stem, from one of my tires. And so I went on Amazon to buy a set of 4, and you could buy a set of 4 for like $4. But for $5, you could buy 100. And so that's what I did. So I have 100. I have 96, 97 in a drawer somewhere in my workshop. It's like literally a lifetime supply of those caps. And so I tend to do that, right? And so when I was packing, for example, when I packed, when I packed food, I packed for a month's worth of meals, but I was only going to be gone for a total of 10 days, and even then, a lot of those days were going to be spent driving on the road, so we were probably going to get fast food or, hanging out with friends at this convention, so we were all going to go out to dinner and have meals, or lunch and have meals. So I just way overpacked on food. Right here, right now, there's a case of ramen noodles, 24 packs of ramen noodles. I didn't even open it, you know. There were a lot of meals that I did eat. I ate a lot of things like ravioli and spaghetti meatballs in a can, things that were just easy to heat up, microwave, or you know, do things like that. So, yeah, I overpacked, you know. When I go on a trip, like if I have a suitcase and I'm going to be gone for 3 days, I'll put in 6 or 7 shirts because I want to have those options. I don't know what I'm going to wear tomorrow morning. I might want to wear this. I might want to wear this, you know. But in the van, you just can't do that. You can't take 7 shirts for a 3-day trip. You got to take 3 shirts for a 3-day trip, maybe a 4th, you know, for an emergency. But you can't just bring too many things because there's not enough room. And so I ran out of room. The other thing I didn't do was, when it came to the refrigerator, I didn't pack smartly. So what I did was I packed things evenly. So I packed a few beers, I packed a few wine coolers, I packed a few waters, I packed a few Diet Dr. Peppers, and then I brought like the rest of the case of Diet Dr. Pepper, but not in the fridge. And I ended up buying a case of water at a convenience store. And what happened was I drank a lot of water on this trip, and I drank a lot of Diet Dr. Peppers on this trip. And of the 3 beers, I drank 1. And of the wine coolers, I drank none. And so they were taking up all this space that could have been used for food, it could have been used for more water. And so I just didn't pack appropriately. This led to another problem, which was I ran out of space. I ran out of space. It got to the point when I was driving where I had things piled on the bed. I had things filling the aisle that goes in between the bed and the desk. I had so many things in the van that the van basically became non-functional. Like I could not get around in the van. Normally from the front seat I could reach back and get something out of the fridge, but there were so many things to get to the fridge. We had to literally, I could only access it when we were pulled over. Get out, open the sliding door and get things from the fridge and do it that way. So I just ended up with too many things in the van, and that leads me to the final thing, and that's I wrote an article. If you don't follow BigRobsVan.com, the website, I write blog articles about van life and my experiences, and sometimes they're just expansions on my YouTube videos, and sometimes they're standalone articles. But I wrote an article about this trip, and the title of it was, I don't have room for a hamper. And it's something I didn't think about. On this trip, every day I was hot and sweaty. It was so humid in West Virginia. It was 90 degrees at least every day. And at the end of every night, when I took off my clothes and I put on my nighttime jammies, my clothes were soaking wet. And I didn't have room, I didn't want to put them back in my suitcase, and so I ended up putting them back in small plastic bags. And after a couple of days in a plastic bag, I tied it off and I started putting them in random places around the van. I crammed them under the bed. Anywhere where there was a crevice, a crack, anywhere that I could find, under the seat. I just started cramming dirty clothes. And by the end of the trip, this van started to smell like a teenage locker room. It was terrible. So part of the reason why everything's open in the van right now is to just de-air everything. So if you fill your van to 100% and you buy one thing, you're at 101%. There's nowhere for that to go. And so I shouldn't have filled everything before I left. I mean, I filled everything before I left, and then I bought a case of water. I took the rest of a case of Diet Dr. Pepper. I mean, I was already overflowing, and then as I started adding dirty clothes and things like that, and of course it didn't help that I was going to this computer convention, so I took a large tub of computer stuff as well. So I took more than I would normally take anyway, but yeah, it just got to the point like I couldn't get to the microwave. I couldn't get to anything in the van without taking things out or shuffling things around, and more than just the normal, like I think van life is all about shuffling. That's what I've determined is just, it's always move this to get to that, or move this to do that, those sorts of things. But it became impossible. There was nowhere to move the things to get to the things. So those are kind of the takeaways, things that I would like to improve on the next road trip, and there will be another road trip in Big Rob's van. Don't know where we're going yet, but I want to say thanks to my wife. My wife did a lot of the heavy lifting on the driving on this trip. One of the things that happened on the way home is I was reminded that this is a cargo van. It is not a comfortable shuttle bus. It is not a passenger van. It is a cargo van. And I was reminded about that because on the second day of the trip, something in my back started hurting. My leg has been kind of burning. My back has been hurting, and it appears to be like sciatic nerve pain, which can be caused by sitting too long in a vehicle. It can be caused by not proper posture or having bad seats. And so I probably did all those things on the way home. And I'm definitely suffering for it at the moment. Lots of Advil, lots of Tylenol. And I'm gonna have to go find those beers that I took out earlier. So, yeah, you know, you're just reminded that, especially for a long trip like that, and maybe that's one other takeaway. We tried stopping like every 200 miles, something like that, but maybe more frequent stops. You know, there's always that point in the road trip where it's just time to get home. And we drove from Louisville, Kentucky to Oklahoma City straight through, which is lots of hundreds of miles. And so, yeah, I'm paying the price for it at the moment. But it is what it is. Like I said, for the most part, like all the stuff that I wanted the van to do, that I planned on the van doing, it all did it. You know, the solar worked, the batteries worked, the microwave worked, the fridge worked, the bed works. Everything worked, you know, so no complaints. No complaints. And so I'm ready for the next one. So that's pretty much it. I did have someone anonymously donate me 3 coffees, and let me tell you, brother, I drank them all. I drank every one of them on this trip and then some. So thanks to whoever that was. I also had a very generous PayPal donation from a viewer, Rocco, and his wife and their dog, and it couldn't have come at a better time. I was at the tiny house. I was having to go get supplies and go get things that I needed. And one of the things they said on their donation was that it was for dinner for me and my wife. And let me tell you, after spending 2,200 miles and the last half of that trip in a van full of my dirty, wet, stinky clothes, she earned it. She absolutely earned it. And so that's definitely what we'll be doing that. And that was very generous, and I appreciate it. So I think that's it. So thanks to all the people that have been supporting me. Thanks to everyone that has used the Amazon affiliate links. You can find those always in the description of these videos. And there's a Amazon affiliate link on my website on BigRobsVan.com. And don't forget, if you use those links, it does not change your price at all. Your price does not change. And for basically camping and van life things and things like that, I get, they say 3%, but then they take something else off of that. So, but it does add up, you know, it adds up. And so I appreciate everybody that has used those links. I added a couple of stickers to the van on the trip. This is a friend of mine at the computer show, Mr. Cola. We swap stickers, so he now has Big Rob's van sticker, and I have a Mr. Cola sticker right there. I also got a sticker here for the Valley Park, which is a big park and a water park that's in Hurricane, West Virginia. And my friend's wife, Terry, works for either the park or for the city and was able to get me this sticker. And they have a huge water park. I think it's $8 a day to get into. It's ridiculously cheap, and it looks super rad. So yeah, so you know, the sticker collection, I'm having a good time adding to that. Of course, we got our Buc-ee sticker, which I already had, but every time we see a Buc-ee's, we got to go there. So yeah, the sticker collection is growing. All of these stickers most of them are places the van has been, and a few of them are places that I have been without the van. I was not able to get the van to Bermuda in the Bermuda Triangle, but I've been there. So anyway, thanks for all the stuff. Again, if you would like this video, it gets it in front of other people's in their feeds. You know, if you want to leave a comment, tell me about the longest road trip you've gone on. Tell me what you would have done different. What is the next upgrade that I need to do in this van? I'm always open to ideas. So anything that you want to leave down there in the comments, suggestions or just feedback, I'm always open to that. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to click subscribe so you will see future videos of mine pop up on your YouTube feed. So again, thanks to my wife for putting up with my nonsense, not just on this trip, but all of it. There's a lot of nonsense and she puts up with a lot of me. So other than that, I think that's it. Thank you guys for following along. I hope you had a good time watching my trip. I had a good time on the trip. And after I'm gonna rest this back for a day or two, and then let's go have some more adventures in Big Rob's van. I'll see you guys soon. That generator just runs forever, doesn't it? Just doesn't stop. It has 2 compartments, a small one and a large one. What? You come with me to a place in a little town. No. Only way to get this to go straight down. No. There's no bathroom and there is no sink. No. The water out of the tap is very hard to drink. Very hard to drink. Sorry, a little over the top of the part. My God. Oh, Lord.